I'm Greg DeFama, and you're listening to Dan Shonka's Scouting Section on the Our Lads Football Radio Network, where it's never too early to think about the NFL Draft. On this edition, Dan will let you know why Baker Mayfield is the current top-rated senior quarterback prospect for OurLads.com. All right, Dan, welcome back. Good to talk to you again. Big game coming up this week between Oklahoma and Oklahoma State. So I think there should be a lot of people interested in this game, especially fans that are paying attention to the NFL draft with, again, your top two senior-rated quarterbacks playing this week in one game. So that's going to be kind of special. Also, big implications for the national championship. Let me get right to it then with Baker Mayfield, Dan. What did Mayfield do the most to impress you from the player that he was a couple years ago when I know you weren't as high on him as you are now?
Well, you know, when he was at Texas Tech, he was in that actually pretty much the system he was now, but he's kind of grown in regards to his accuracy and his ability to anticipate, and his leadership has just been tremendous. This guy is an ultra competitive quarterback, and he shows good intensity on the field. And boy, I tell you, he's Jekyll and Hyde, because when he's on that field, he's got laser focus, and then he backs it up with his laser type passes, and I mean, he just lays the ball right in there. And it's kind of amused because, you know, some people said, well, in our Deshaun Watson, in fact, I had one guy say, well, you said that he was wildly inaccurate. You know, that was one line I put in there. And if you watch him, he's not real accurate. Accurate to me is when you stick that ball right in between the numbers,
Sure.
right in a rib cage,
Yeah.
or, you know, stick it in stride.
Yeah.
You know, when the quarterback or when the wide receiver is running, they don't have to slow for the ball. Now, even now, you look at Watson, and he's done a tremendous job. Absolutely no question about it. But look where he throws the ball and where the receivers have got to go get it. You know, which is, hey, the bottom line is you make the catch, you make the throw, you score the touchdown. But don't tell me he's, you know, an ultra accurate, a quarterback that's you're going to put right up there with Drew Brees.
Yeah, and you don't have to be anyway. I mean, sure,
No.
Not every great quarterback is going to be the most accurate quarterback. So, I mean, just look at Brett Favre.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll tell you one thing, boy. You talk about throwing it with some mustard on it, boy. I mean, that ball sizzled when it came off his hand. But yeah, he got it close enough for him to
Oh,
snag.
yeah, that's it. Close enough. And you also have a lot of other things that you could bring to the table that makes you a special quarterback. In your 2018 Our Lads NFL Draft Preview brochure, you mentioned that Mayfield plays in a wide-open attack that he's been so accustomed to, and that he might struggle to adapt to an NFL system. So compare him to other quarterbacks in similar college systems over the years that you've had to deal with in the same, with the same potential pitfalls that Mayfield may have to. What is it about his makeup that gives you confidence that he can actually make the transition?
Well, all reports out of Oklahoma, this guy is really studies his opponents, and he really doesn't have bad games. I mean, you look at him over his career, and he is just spot on throwing the ball. Now, his receivers may drop it, but he had to adapt to new receivers this year and things. Everybody's talking about Darnold, collapsing under that, and Rosen from UCLA had struggled because his guys were dropping balls left and right. But, Mayfield lost D.D. Westbrook, and he's adapted to really transfers like Baggett, and where he put that ball right underneath his chin for one touchdown. So I think the big thing is just his maturity over the last couple of years, because he's got a chip on his shoulder now. There's no question about it. This guy walked on, at Texas Tech, and then, end up leaving there to go to Oklahoma because it was more high pressure than. And so I think this guy, the NFL is not going to be too big for Baker Mayfield.
All right. Because of his lack of ideal height, In what aspect of Mayfield's game does he make up for it the most?
Well, he's got that ability to move in the pocket and throw through the throwing lanes. And now Drew Brees, to me, he's more of a Drew Brees kind of guy.
Okay.
You know, because they're both similar in height, and actually Mayfield might be a little bit thicker than Drew. And but Drew, people don't realize that he's one of the first spread formation quarterbacks that took the snap, from the shotgun and just threw slants and things like that when he was at Purdue. Okay. And none of his receivers ever really made it big. But so Drew Brees would be that kind of guy. And then Chase Daniel, who played in a similar system in Missouri, but I mean, he's not the star that Drew is by a long stretch. But, guys that have adapted well from their spread because they worked, like Dak Prescott, for instance, he worked taking snaps and under center and things like that in pre-practice and all that stuff when he was in college. And so it wasn't completely, new to him. And then, of course, Mariota, when his wide open spread offense, he did things a little different, but he could really run, and he had that laser accuracy also. But Mayfield doesn't have to run like Mariota, nor is he as good a runner, but he's good enough.
You also mentioned Mayfield has some Johnny Manziel in him. What should NFL scouts and GMs be looking for in him then as a person when they interview him to feel confident that he's not going to flop the way that Johnny Football did?
Well, he had, an off-field incident that, was relatively minor compared to Johnny. And Manziel was always, he was just, I don't think, two things that really separate. One thing, Manziel was an entitled brat,
okay.
And everybody knew that. And, he didn't think he had to play by the rules of society, whereas Mayfield, here's a guy walked on. Nobody, told him how great he was his whole life and things like that.
Okay.
He proved how great he is. So I think those are probably the biggest differences, Greg.
All right. What do you think Mayfield has to do this week against Oklahoma State and also the rest of the season? What do you want to see him do in order to keep boosting his stock?
I just want to see him keeping on doing what he's doing. I mean, even in the loss, for instance, to Iowa State, he still had most college quarterbacks would jump up and down for the kind of game he had. He threw for over 300 yards, and he showed his accuracy and everything there. I just want to see him. Of course, he goes into Ohio State and just.
Oh yeah,
and people, and boy, that second half he couldn't have any better. And so he's. I think the brighter the lights, the bigger this guy plays.
Yeah.
And in this week here, I think that in the Bedlam series, you got obviously you mentioned our two top senior quarterbacks going head to head, and Mason Rudolph is a stable guy too, and. So I think that, but Mayfield just has to keep doing what he's doing. Hey, if the scouts chart those things, and if a receiver drops the ball, they drop the ball. But I mean, he's putting that ball right where it's got to be. Hits people in stride. He uses his tight end extremely well. Andrews, yep. And so he has to just keep. And then they got to blend in, the running game. And to keep the pressure off of everybody dropping way back. Hey, if they drop back, I have no doubt that Mayfield would say, "Hey, fine, we'll go ahead and run the ball and score that way." So I think he's a good leader. I think the team around him rallies around because they got great confidence that this guy can win. He exudes confidence. That's the other big thing about him.
And gotta love, I just love the rankings. I can't have enough of the polls, and I just get reminded every year about them when I see Oklahoma ranked 8th and Ohio State 3rd. When Oklahoma beat Ohio State in Ohio State, I just can't get enough of those polls. I just love them. So and as you're saying about Mayfield coming up in big games, and this is why I said repeatedly last year why I love Deshaun Watson so much, because while he had some limitations that you went over heading to the draft. Some of the things he has to get better on. Some of the things he still has to get better on. Sometimes you see a player, especially what he did the last 2 national championship games last year, winning it in the final seconds, and sometimes a player just has it. And he always came up big in the big games. And that's what I like about Mayfield. And that's why, as a Jet fan, this is the guy I'd want. And the fact that he may not be the top quarterback drafted, maybe he's the 3rd quarterback drafted, is a good thing if you're a Jet fan in my mind, because that means maybe you get a shot at him. So you tell me. I mean, knowing how New York is, the New York area, would Mayfield fit there okay? Would you be concerned with Mayfield being drafted in New York? And let's just say Chad Morton is also the offensive coordinator there next year. Is that a system that you think would be okay for him or not?
Well, I think that, the thing is, it seems like some fans think it's all about them, not the team. And New York's got that reputation, you know what I mean? And that is bothersome. I think that, and the thing is, and even though we've seen, like, even what Russell Wilson did yesterday. There's people that say, well, I want a quarterback that's 6'3" and 6'4", and he's got to be able to do this, and he's got to be able to. And instead of thinking outside the box, say, well, that 6'4" guy can't throw the ball and doesn't anticipate like my 6'1" or 6 foot guy. Go see Drew Brees.
Sure.
And and there's still some hard heads that might not even take Russell Wilson. Seattle, they had no idea how good Russell Wilson was going to be. I mean, they bring in Flynn and they're living under a star. The only one that's luckier than them is Jerry Jones when they took Dak Prescott.
Yeah.
So.
Or the Patriots when they took Brady in the sixth round. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. No. Yeah. But you know what? Hey, if somebody didn't see something in those guys when they're because Jones didn't want Dak Prescott. He wanted Cook. Who's what? I don't even know. I guess he's still sitting on the bench at
3rd string.
Oakland.
Yep. 3rd string.
So but once these guys got their charisma and their hard work.
Yeah.
And
that's what I like about Mayfield. That's what I see. There's something about Mayfield when I see him play, like you said. Again, he's a gamer. He comes up big in big spots, and I think he can handle New York. It's just a matter of, but you tell me, do you think he could handle New York as well?
Well, yeah, I think, well, you know what? He might be spectacular in New York because, hey, like I said, he plays in the lights of the brightest.
Yep.
And they don't get much brighter in New York City.
That's right. All right. Excellent, Dan. I appreciate your insight on Baker Mayfield, and we look forward to talking to you again later on down the road.
Thanks for being, Greg.
You got it. All right. That is Dan Shonka, and don't forget, Dan is going to be here on a weekly basis, scouting players in college football all the way through to the 2018 NFL Draft. So thanks for checking in with us here. Don't forget also to order a 2018 Our Lads NFL Draft Preview brochure. You can do that right now, and you can go to ourlads.com and do it. Thanks for tuning in to the Our Lads Football Radio Network. We'll see you next time. Revolution, take its toll if you could. I think a switch,